Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris. As always, in association with our charity partner, 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀, who help local people affected by cancer. And now, newly, proudly sponsored by Hill Coaching Company, here to help you become a better version of yourself today. Now, let's welcome the guest that I've summoned, Ellie Ross-Wilkinson, graphic designer at Fountain Partnership. They're a global Google award-winning digital marketing agency. Ellie heads up all things design for both internal and client work. And Ellie, the question I want to start with for you is, why do people need to look into refreshing, rewiring, redesigning their pitch decks?
Well, hello. I think one of the common misconceptions with design is that you just do it and then it's done. But actually it's something that needs to be updated quite regularly. I think, you know, especially in digital marketing, which is obviously the area I work in, there's so many trends, there's so many new technologies, there's like all sorts of stuff, and you really need to stay on top of that just to show that the people you're pitching to that you have what you've got to offer and you're ahead of your competitors. I think it's also a really important way of making an impact and making you memorable to the clients, because at the end of the day, you're selling yourself to work with them. And I think it's really important to show your personality, to show what you can do in the design, not just what is on the deck, but actually how you present it. I think that's a really important thing. So yeah, it's just super important to keep it up to date, and just make it look nice.
I think
it's great.
You raised so many good points already, Ellen, and as the pitch deck queen, as I like to call you, I think it's really important that people think about design and they remove themselves away from the, oh, it's just a fluffy thing, right? Because that it flows, the order. You know so much more about it than I do, hence for you coming on as a guest today, and I look forward to extracting that value out of you. But I think you make some really good points there already, Ellie, and actually you've already answered my next question, which was actually why do pitch decks matter so much. But essentially, I would maybe then just change that, Ellie, to you. The updating thing is quite interesting, because we probably all fall victim to creating this maybe templated thing, tweak a little bit and stuff like that. But obviously, based upon your success rate with regards to proposals, you should be rewiring all the time, right? So what's your take on that? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I actually very regularly, so at Fountain we have a templated PowerPoint which everyone has access to, but I'm the main one that is in control of the master slides and all of that. And I would say I actually probably go into it at least once a week, just because that comes back from feedback with colleagues who use the decks, and like just to see what they want from it and what they want to tell in their story. But I'm there to assist that. And I think I very regularly update it. I very regularly go in. I'm a bit of a perfectionist myself, so I feel like I probably see things sometimes and I'm like, oh, let me just change that really quickly and all of that. But yeah, definitely regularly look at it. Look at what your competitors are doing. Look at what your client is like as well. I think that's a really important thing to consider, because even though you've got a templated deck, you're going to want to then be able to customize that and have slides that are interchangeable depending on the tone that you are trying to portray.
Totally with you, Ellie. Totally with you. And I really want to ask you to, if you don't mind, pour out your wisdom with regards to what should actually be in a pitch deck that helps you win big business, right? Because I think it's great knowledge, how to get something together for the small fry stuff. But, you're in a world with Fountain where, you're pitching for big business. So I'm excited to hear from you on what actually needs to be in a pitch deck, in your opinion.
So, I can't speak too much for the content side of things, because obviously that's not my area of expertise. But I think the main thing you want to do is tell a story, right? And you want to engage with your audience. And so at the end of the day, the goal of this deck is to win them over. And I think what you want to do in doing that is you want to leave an impact. And so I would say the really key things to kind of show yourself and your personality and your company and what you're selling is tell them about yourself, you know, have like a this is us moment, but not too much. Like, I think it's good to have it at the beginning, set the scene, all of that. And then I think it's important to kind of like go with the flow a bit and kind of it's so hard to say what should go on it. I feel, yeah, it's hard to know exactly.
No, I'm with you, Ellie. So what I would say is, what does it look like? Because
Well,
are you chucking like X number of words on a page? Should you put too many? Are we using some sort of flow shapey thing? No, like tell me in your design world, what should that really look like to make sure that the reader actually stays engaged and gets to the critical point, which is of course the investment.
Yeah, so something that is really, really important when you're designing a deck is visual hierarchy. So visual hierarchy is basically is all of how the elements work together. So you're looking at font sizes, structure, spacing, all of that, different shapes, and the main thing when you're doing this is you want to show and highlight the important information. So if you've got lots of figures and stuff, but actually you want this main one to be looked at, then you will have that bigger, you'll have it bolder, you'll have it in color. And I think that's the main thing to consider. I think it's very easy to put a lot of words on a page when you've got so much information. I see all of the research that goes into these decks, and I can just see how much information like you want to put on it, but actually you need to strip it back and choose what's the important thing that I'm trying to say here, what am I trying to get across, and then in doing that it's going to be a lot more impactful overall because the focus is going to be on that information, which is going to then lead to you know, the initial investment.
So good, Ellie, so good. I feel like I'm learning a lesson myself. I would really also love to understand, is there a correlation, do you think, Ellie, between the bigger the business, the bigger the deck, or is that nonsense? Would you agree or disagree with that?
So I mean, I don't know really. I feel like decks shouldn't be too big, right? Like, it's hard to say if you've got lots of information that does need to go on it, especially it's different when you're presenting, and also you can present it, but then you may also be just sending it over. And obviously if you're just sending it over, there's going to need to be a lot more information because you're not going to be there to explain it. But what I would recommend is just to keep most of the information actually in your notes section if you're presenting, because you want these nice big figures, you want these nice big statements. You don't want just like pages and pages and pages of writing, because at the end of the day, people are going to get distracted. They're not going to take it in, and actually, like, you want to leave that lasting like impact, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, Ellie. Totally with you too. I can't help but think of the small business owners when we're having this conversation, the people that aren't blessed to, you know, have a fountain partnership marketing machine, you know, and my question to you is, how bespoke should you make a proposal when it comes to the design and things like that? Should a small business maybe get something templated, or like what? I'm struggling to understand the balance here, because of course we all have businesses to run. We know how important it is to win the business, but at the same time, if it's completely templated, then obviously that's not going to land with the client, particularly when you're trying to pitch for bigger business. So I'd be really interested to get your take on that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's really important to make your deck bespoke. I think no matter the size of your business, at the end of the day, you're going to want that client to feel special and to feel like you've actually looked into them and you understand their needs and you understand what it's like. You're showing that you've researched it and you actually care, instead of just being kind of like a machine that's just being like, I can give this and this. I think it's really important to have that almost human interaction and just show that you can work with them on their brand instead of just being like, this is us, this is who we are.
Yes.
I also when I do it myself, I find it quite an interesting task, because obviously when we're doing decks, we actually do a combination of our brand with the clients. And I mean, we've got bright pink branding, so it's always very entertaining to kind of see how we can combine them. And
Yeah.
I actually sometimes see it as like it's almost like a visual tool to show people and be like, look, our brands can work together like this, so why don't we work together, kind of thing. So I definitely would suggest, like, no matter what, make your client feel special, appeal to them, let them relate to it.
Love that.
And I think also, even if you've got a template, you can have a very basic template that then makes it easier to then add in like the logos and stuff like that. That will just, even tiny things like that will
Yeah.
elevate your pictures so much.
So much gold in that, Ellie. There's so much gold. I think you've already, I think, maybe accidentally trod on something here, which I think is brilliant, which I think is
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. The co-branded pitch deck piece. That's something I have to admit, maybe I'm a bit of a novice here, but that's something that I've considered before in my pitch decks. I would be maybe doing something that's obviously within my Reeve social media branding, but I would never lean into the client's branding as well. So I think that is potentially leading on to this next question, Ellie, which is, what are the pitch deck secrets, right? Because you're such a talented designer. Like, I've seen your work before, from animation, illustration, all sorts of magical things you can do. What are the secrets that you're putting in a pitch deck that perhaps other businesses could plant in theirs to win big business?
Honestly, so I actually had I was having a conversation about this with the team the other day, and I was trying to think. I was like, what is the secret? Like, don't know. But actually, I think I genuinely, and it seems so simple, and I've kind of talked about this a bit already, but less is more. 100% less is more, because you just don't want to overwhelm the client. You want to be to the point. You want to show that you know what you're doing, but you also want to show like a level of detail that you have and that you can provide in your services. And then if you have less, you're going to be able to use this visual hierarchy, and you're going to have the space to move about and be playful with your features and be more unique, that will actually help you like be better than your competitors and stand out more.
Love that. Ellie, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Forgive me.
Oh no.
You did a pitch deck for me once upon a time, which
Yeah.
blew my mind fairly recently. It wasn't yonks
I was
ago.
going to say once upon a time. That was like not that long ago.
A few months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you used a piece of terminology to describe it is almost like an interactive thing. What was that? I'm putting you on the spot now. It was like an animation essentially. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, would you recommend that people add in interactive, engaging, moving parts, or do you think just static pictures I don't know. I am particularly interested in that, because that was something that you did for me.
Yeah. So it's on the tip of my tongue now, but I do remember having that conversation. I can't entirely remember what the term was. But I think on the side of animations and interactiveness, it really depends, because I think it's really easy to look at it and think, if there's animations, it's going to be more fun, it's going to be more engaging, it's going to be just more high energy, right? But I think almost with the same motto in mind, less is more, because but then also, like, not like, you can have some, that's not an issue. But I think if you have lots of things dancing around on a page, it's going to take away the attention from what you're actually trying to show. And it can be very dependent on the client as well and the tone of the pitch. And I think this is where research into the audience is going to come in handy, because if you're pitching to quite a serious corporate client, they're probably not going to appreciate a dancing penguin on the page. Don't know where the penguin came from, but but then, you know, if it's a more fun, illustrative brand, then I think it actually they'll like that more. And actually, this is a good way of showing what else you can offer. Like if you have these talents and skills to create decks like this, then maybe that's something you can also offer the client, depending on obviously what you're selling. But yeah.
This is brilliant, Elliot. Essentially what I'm getting here, and we're further validating the deeper into this conversation we get, is that it's essential to create completely bespoke proposals, which sounds quite starter-pack advice, but I'm sure most businesses are almost completely templating it. And that just shows the importance of, you know, obviously Fountain Partnership are so blessed to have yourself, but, you know, businesses can work with other designers, right? Or, you know, I think that's a really important thing to do. Elliot, I really want to conclude on this conversation by asking about what are the potential, dare I say, mistakes that you see. I know that you've done a lot of mentoring with other designers and stuff, because you are the queen in terms of stuff.
I'll take it.
What are the mistakes that a lot of people are making with their pitch decks?
So I think something that I often see is, I think the main mistake is kind of what I said at the beginning, where I think design takes a backseat and it's almost seen as a nice add-on at the end. Instead, I think it really should be part of the process. And even, you know, when I work at Fountain, like I get brought in early conversations so I can really understand the client and I can really kind of help with that creative mindset, which then in turn helps with the data I'm presenting on this deck for people. Something that I'm sure my colleagues will agree with is that I ingrain it into people. It's branding and like keeping it consistent. My main thing is fonts. Like I'm a perfectionist with the fonts, but for me personally, I think it's really easily overlooked because there's automatic fonts that will come up when you're on PowerPoint, and it's just easier to do that when you're in a rush and you're trying to, you know, get as much down as you can. But actually, if you think about it, a designer's created this branding for a reason. Like all of the fonts go together, the colors go together, the spacing is there. And I think if you don't have that, it can very easily distract the flow and it can disrupt it. And then people will lose attention and like it will. I mean, this sounds intense, but like I like fonts. And I think the main piece of advice I could give people is actually just to take a look at your brand guidelines, take a look at your client's brand guidelines, look at those small things, because I think that attention to detail again is really going to help with the image you put across.
It's almost like that spark of wow factor, isn't it? Right? You almost like light during Indiana Jones style before this, you know, this explosion of first impression lands in their inbox, right? Or it's presented to client. 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀, this is just absolutely fantastic. I'm so grateful for your time today. I know that you're such a busy bee at Fountain Partnership, creating incredible stuff. And Ellie, where can people continue to follow your career journey? Are you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Ellie Ross-Wilkinson, so look me up on there. And I'm also on Instagram, which is probably where I post most. I'd say it's ERW Design. So yeah, go give me a follow.
I will go fair with your Instagram. And of course, I mean, if you're not already being followed around your digital universe by Fountain Partnership, I'll be very surprised. But of course, go and check out those guys. Really impressive. Really impressive digital marketing agency based in our hometown of Norwich. Ellie, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. It was lovely being here.
And thank you so much to everyone that is either watching this live or perhaps listening to this in the car, and all of the audio platforms are continuing to grow. If you've enjoyed this episode of Coffee with Chris, why not drop us a comment? Let us know your questions and queries. I'm sure Ellie will be happy to answer all of your pitch deck questions. And apart from that, I will see you this time next week for another episode of Coffee